Welcome back to my channel. I'm the Storytellawyer. Have you ever entered a country without a visa and subsequently faced detention? Today we will explore one of the most controversial immigration cases in history, reminiscent of the 2004 movie The Terminal. The film, inspired by the true story of Mehran Karimi Nasseri, who lived in Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport for 18 years from 1988 to 2006, features Tom Hanks as the fictional character Victor Navorsky. Steven Spielberg bought the rights to Nasseri's story while he still lived in the airport. In today's discourse, I will present a real-life case that closely parallels the scenario depicted in this movie. This is the case of Al-Kateb and Godwin, which is arguably one of Australia's most controversial immigration law cases. You can find additional details of this legal case in the description below. Be sure to click share, like, and subscribe button for fascinating legal stories and updates. The content in this video is meant for educational and entertainment purposes and not intended to provide legal advice of any kind. Storytellawyer will not be liable for actions taken based on the content provided on this video. Ahmed Al-Kateb, a stateless Palestinian man, arrived in Australia in 1998 without a visa. He was detained because he was considered an unlawful non-citizen under Australian immigration law. Al-Kateb applied for a visa, but his application was unsuccessful. Despite requesting to be removed from Australia, his removal was not possible due to the lack of international cooperation. Ahmed Al-Kateb was born in Palestine to Kuwaiti parents, which left him without a nationality. Stateless and without a country to call home, Al-Kateb found himself in a legal limbo. In 2004, the High Court of Australia faced a tough decision. Al-Kateb had been refused a visa and was detained indefinitely because he couldn't be sent back to any country. The court had to decide if it was lawful to keep someone in detention indefinitely just because they were stateless. The arguments presented from both parties were vigorous and intense. Al-Kateb's lawyers argued that indefinite detention was inhumane and violated his rights. They believed that the law should be interpreted with compassion and humanity because they saw the Migration Act as a means to manage immigration in a fair and just manner rather than as a tool to impose harsh and indefinite punishment on individuals like Al-Kateb. Indefinite detention was inhumane and violated Al-Kateb's rights based on several legal grounds. 1. Non-refoulement principle. Al-Kateb's lawyers argued that deporting Al-Kateb to a country where he faced persecution would violate the principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits returning individuals to a place where they may face torture or inhumane treatment. 2. Human rights. Al-Kateb's lawyers contended that indefinite detention violated Al-Kateb's human rights, particularly the right to liberty and security of person as outlined in international human rights treaties such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights or ICCPR. 3. Australian Constitution. Al-Kateb's lawyers argued that indefinite detention was inconsistent with the Australian Constitution. The lawyers argued that the Constitution should be interpreted in a manner consistent with international law of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Indefinite detention of unlawful non-citizens, like the appellant, violated international human rights standards and principles. 4. Legislative intent. Al-Kateb's lawyers believed that the Migration Act should be interpreted with compassion and humanity, emphasizing that the law was not intended to allow for indefinite detention without a clear path to deportation or release. The argument was based on the principle that legislation should not be interpreted to infringe upon fundamental human rights unless there is a clear and unambiguous intention by the legislature to do so. This principle is rooted in the idea that the protection of personal liberty is a core value in a free society under the rule of law. 5. Proportionality. Al-Kateb's lawyers argued that indefinite detention was not a proportionate response to the issue of unlawful non-citizens, as it imposed an excessive burden on individuals without achieving a legitimate objective. On the other hand, the Commonwealth government argued that the law was clear stateless persons could be detained indefinitely if they couldn't be deported. In a split decision, the High Court ruled by 4-3 majority that Al-Kateb could indeed be detained indefinitely. This decision highlighted the literal interpretation of the law which many saw as a warning against such rigid readings. This decision was controversial because it highlighted a literal interpretation of the law which many critics argued was too rigid and could lead to human rights abuses. 3 out of 7 judges dissented, expressing that indefinite detention was not consistent with principles of justice and the rule of law. Interestingly, Al-Kateb was released from detention in 2003 following a related case. Al-Masri and Minister for Immigration and Multicultural and Indigenous Affairs. But the Al-Kateb and Godwin case remains a significant moment in Australian legal history. This case highlights the complexities of immigration law and the human experiences underlying legal decisions. It underscores the importance of judicial responsibility. The decision showcases the responsibility of the judiciary to interpret laws in ways that balance legal precision with justice and humanity. The indefinite detention of a stateless person without the prospect of deportation raises significant ethical and human rights issues, emphasizing the need for laws to align with international human rights standards. Let me ask you a question. Should judges strictly adhere to the literal interpretation of laws, or should they consider broader ethical and human rights implications? Leave comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful stories on legal cases.